Like the one of sending the presentation back. All right. Okay. 1 second. Huh? Yeah, anytime. Okay. Amazing. Oh, no problem. No, no, I want to ask. Why?
Um, the president, there are a lot of members of the disciplinary committee, and then I still present our speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and a warm welcome to this called annual general conference of the General Society. I'm sorry myself a little bit. one to one. Remain standing on the endless prayer. I read, Almighty, most merciful, most gracious God, Creator. Fine, but something for the mix-up. We have some of our speakers who are present here, and I would like to welcome and acknowledge them. So we have Dr. Eze Ngoji. They are welcome. Um, fine, but something for the mix-up. We have some of our speakers who are present here, and I would like to welcome and acknowledge them. So we have Dr. Eze. Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the Nigerian Law Society's Annual General Conference 2025. This year's theme, Democracy in Nigeria, the journey so far, is a timely reflection on our nation's progress and challenge in consolidating democracy. As we gather here this morning, we recognize the critical role that as we gather here this morning, we recognize the critical role that the legal profession plays in shaping the trajectory of our democracy. Our theme acknowledges the significant milestone we've achieved, while also highlighting areas that require our collective attention and action. Today, we will engage in thought-provoking discussions, share insights, and explore solutions to the pressing issues affecting our democracy in Nigeria. I'm also confident that this conference will provide a platform for meaningful dialogue, networking, synergy, and professional growth. I therefore extend my gratitude to our sponsors, speakers, and organizers of their tireless efforts in making this conference a reality. To our participants and other invited guests, I encourage you to
Though democracy originated in Greece, it is the best form of governance for any country. However, those who do not want to practice democracy will either argue that democracy is for Western societies or advocate for a homegrown democracy so that they can dominate, control, and manipulate democracy to become something else, which will not benefit them. Now, I go to the main item that is the ground norm, is the organic law, and it is the autobiography of a nation, which is the Constitution. The Constitution, if you want to know the state of any nation or any country, pick a copy of its Constitution, and it will tell you what that country contains. Whether you know the kind of government that is being run, you know how the officials that run the government, the rules, and those that rule, and how they emerge. Even the economic situation of the country, it tells everything about that country. If you want to go and invest, you're an investor. You want to know about the state of the country, you are going to pour in your money, pick a copy of their constitution, and you will know whether to be a safe haven for you to go and invest there. And so let's look at our 1999 constitution. The 1999 constitution specifically, which is unfortunately non-justicial, states the principle of democracy and social justice on which the Federal Republic of Nigeria is founded. It states that historically Nigeria shall be founded, or the government shall be founded on principles of democracy and social justice. It emphasizes the participation of the people in their government, ensuring this participation through provisions within the Constitution. Additionally, the Constitution guarantees the existence of a democratically elected, even down the local government level, Section 7, that says this Constitution hereby protects or recognizes only a democratically elected local government council. This is the 1999 Constitution. So let's consider some of these sections. Key provisions in the 1999 Constitution that guarantees the practice of democracy in Nigeria. Having gone through what democracy entails, section 40, subsection 1. However, this says that Nigeria is a democracy based on the principles of democracy, social justice. This is the Constitution, but as whether it's right, it's also practiced on the ground is a different story. But I will get to that in a couple of the speech. Section 40, subsection 2C also emphasizes the need for the people's participation in their government, ensuring this participation through constitutional provisions. Section 7. Section 7 guarantees of the Constitution guarantees the existence of democratically elected government councils and outlines their establishment, structure, composition, finance, and content. Electoral system. The Constitution provides for a system of universal suffrage for electing the president and other public officers. Separation of powers. The Constitution, as 1999, establishes a separation of powers principle between the legislative, executive, and the judicial council. Freedom of the press is also guaranteed. The Constitution protects the freedom of press, which is essential for holding government accountable. The rule of law. The Constitution also promotes the rule of law, ensuring that everyone is subject and accountable by the law. Participation. Now, the Constitution emphasizes the importance of citizens' participation in governance, including through elections and other democratic means. Nigeria's democratic journey has been marked by significant milestones, challenges, and progress. Here, I give a cursory look at the country's transition, democracy, 1999, and its history. Now, it's a very tall order for you to discuss democracy in Nigeria from 1960 to the present date. You're all aware of the First Republic, how it was truncated by the military interregnum in 1966, which, as you know, brought in the Khaki boys. Now, when the military took over, you are aware of the enormous damage done. If they had left us from that 60 date, I bet you we would have strengthened some aspects of our democratic practices. But when this interregnum comes and takes place, the military, for instance, came in with their centralized system order, where you take command of the top and those below just follow. So this system of governance that was introduced with the military interregnum for over 29 years out of the over 65 years independent gives you an idea that it was a bumpy thing. Hence, I would like to take us to this fourth republic that we are in, not at least getting back, just as I told you, in discussing the interregnums that took place. As you all know, Nigeria gained independence from the British colonial rule on 1st October 1960. The country experienced instability, military coups, counter coups, and short-lived democratic experiments in its early years. The Second Republic, 1979-1983, was marked by corruption and political turmoil. In Nigeria's context, the terms federal democracy and true federalism are often used interchangeably, but they mean different things. A federal democracy. Federal democracy refers to a system of government where power is divided between a central government and a constituent units, states or regions, with a democratic framework governing the relationship between these entities. In Nigeria's federal democracy, the country has a presidential system with a bicameral legislature and a multi-party system. The 1999 Constitution establishes a framework for the federal state relations, with powers divided between the federal government and the 6 states, as well as federal capital authority. I'll expatiate on that way, give more information, in the course of lecture. Because as far as I'm concerned, we are just masquerading as a federation. Nigeria is not a federation. Central and a constituent federative unit are supposed to be autonomous and independent, which is very, very, very important. And that was what led to the fall of First Republic. It was felt when the regions were too strong compared to the center. The regions still had their own constitutions. So there came a time when a call from the center to the governor of the regions was revolved. And at the end of the day, that led to a civil war. So there's that tendency too that sometimes you are not careful if the regions or the relative units are too strong compared to the center. There's that tendency for some of them really want to break away. So that was why when the military participated from 4 to 6, from 6 to 12, 12 to 19, 19 to 36. Now, the whole business of them doing that was they never wanted a repeat of where any of the military units can be strong enough to challenge, the guy at the center. Let me use that one. Hence, today we are left in a situation where our president, the Nigerian president, is the most powerful president in the world. Go and check. Our president has enormous powers, and the center is also very, very heavy. It is our constitution is skewed towards making the center very loaded. If you go through the legislative list, for instance, our legislative list before this 5th amendment had about 68 items and about 30 or so at the concurrent list. But today, this has been some of the powers that were for the exclusive legislative list have been devolved the states under the concurrent list. But as you are aware, anything is still under the concurrent list where there's any conflict between the center and the states, the center rates. If you look at the revenue sharing formula, the federal government takes about 52.6% of the federally generated revenues and gives states about 26, local governments 23. So rather, my mind, because if small Abuja can take 52%, put the states together, rather I would have prepared the 52 to give the local governments, and the federal can take the 23, the 26, as the case may be. But unfortunately, this is what is practiced as we speak. So the key differences between the federal democracy and the true federalism is a lack of autonomy. True federalism implies greater autonomy for the states, while federal democracy may involve more centralization of power. Fiscal federalism. True federalism would also involve more control over fiscal resources for the states, whereas federal democracy might see more federal control over revenue allocation and distribution. Decision in a truly federal system, decision making will be more tight, with states having more authority to make decisions on matters affecting their constituents. So challenges and debates. Revenue allocation. The debate around true federalism in Nigeria often centers on revenue allocation, with some argue that states should have more control over the resources within their territories. Security. The issue of security is also a point of contention, with some advocating for more state control over security agencies. And here, in particular, there's this much call for sub-national police, state police. If you ask me, I'm an advocate of state police. About a decade ago, I wouldn't subscribe to the issue of state police. But if you look at the state of security in the country, a situation where you can be within the radius of about police presence. And you also look at the quantum of political office holders, who have ODLs, ADCs as policemen. In top of the local government channel alone, 774 policemen as ODLs, 774 local government channel. Now these policemen are supposed to be policing the society and not going about protecting these individuals. And even if you want to make provisions for them, recruit more. The country is under police. And if you, to my mind, one of the ways out is, if you look at the vigilantes, they are multiple. the Southwest Security Company Limited. That as far as the 6 southern southwestern states are concerned, what they have on ground is a replica of the state police. The only thing short of they are being called state police is they are not trained in mobility in camps and they don't wear uniform and they claim they don't carry arms. But otherwise, convert them just is in the concept because it's accepted, constitution is amended, and police is included in the concurrent state police, and states are allowed to have state police. We're not saying we're doing away with the federal police. It will be federal and state police. But let there be a mechanism where if you go once to abuse the state police, they will another you appeal, to the federal police where they can come there. It just has to have provisions for what we call what transpired, the set of emergency that took place or that transpired at our river state. Even though we do respect, that also was unconstitutional. That act of removing a democratically elected governor and replacing it with an ex-military officer. That's a meaningful. It's a meaningful as far as I'm concerned. It was an unconstitutional act, and if we were in a true democracy, there is a Supreme Court judgment that is presently in place, which ought not to have allowed, or doesn't allow the federal government to do what they did. Unfortunately, we even thought the National Assembly will come to the aid of democracy. They couldn't. So this is the actual, as I said, I read what I told you that exists in the Constitution. But actually on ground, I'm not beginning to tell you what is the practical application, which is advanced on what is stated in the Constitution. So on the transition to democracy in 1999, after nearly 30 years of military rule, Nigeria's transition to democracy on the 29th of May, that's the fourth democracy, with Olusegun Obasanjo, its inauguration as president, in which case I was privileged to serve in that government in an advisory capacity. And let me also say here that I was also privy as in my capacity as a special assistant, the late Justice Steve Cook, the blessed memory, JSC of blessed memory, when he was the chairman of the Constitution Coordinating Debating Committee set up by General Salam, former President retired. Now, the committee was made up of 25 Nigerians. And out of these 25 Nigerians, there was only one woman. Now, the implication of all this is that such a firm position, even if you wanted to pick one percent, that woman could have been 36 or 37 with the FCT. But there were just 25. And out of the 25, there was only one woman. Little wonder, therefore, that when you look at the Constitution, it is not gender sensitive. For instance, I give you two, although some people think it's pedestrian. When you look at the language of the Constitution, there is no she. I know we lawyers, as far as the law is concerned, we say there's no she in the law. We're all gentlemen. But the point is, when you're talking about the Constitution of the Federal Republic of any nation, that we don't even want the census deliberately omits whether you are how many men we have, how many women, and all those contentious issues are left out. But the truth of the matter is, let's even take it that we're 50. Why would you use such a very sizable number? You are mentioning there. And then you needed not to even do it in the main body, where you have he and you say slash she. By putting it in the interpretation column, where you say, you can say, wherever there is a, when you see he, it also represents what? She. That would have taken care of it. Two, do you know too that when a Nigerian man marries a non-Nigerian woman, that woman automatically takes Nigerian citizenship? But the reverse is not the case. What is good for the goose will also be good for what? The gander. That is what takes some of our brothers to America. Once you grab any American lady and marry her, you have automatic green cards. So, or she grabs you, vice versa. So, but But that's what it is. You know? So these are the kind of things I also wish to advocate for that. That if you look at the trajectory of our elected officers, I don't mind a provision in the constitution being made that a seat be reserved in the Senate for women.
Not just
So that yes, and you don't have to do that. So that it's about out of the 109, we have 7 women and then 63 or so whatever are the men. Ditto for House of Reps and ditto for House of Assembly. Now, these are the kind of provisions that the audit they make because someone wanted to leave. They have no intention of staying long, and so he couldn't convoke or call for any constituent assembly that will come and look at the constitution and ensure that some of these provisions are taken care of that can be returned to the democratic. But unfortunately, they handed over the constitution, which lots of flaws have been discovered. As far as we're concerned, despite the flaws, thank God the constitution has provisions for amendments. There are provisions for creation of new states, creation of local government, new local governments, as well as alteration of any provision of the constitution. You can act, you can subtract. Those advocating for independent candidature, it even pass through the constitutional amendment procedure, it will become a part of the 6th amendment, which we are expecting from the 10th assembly. So key events leading to the 1999 transition. It's my paper. Maybe what I can just do is after the lectures, I'll give a soft copy that the secretary can be able to give it to you for 1 to 10 dollars. Speak for 20 minutes. So I also looked at the challenges and the progress, the legacy of the 1999 transition. I looked at key milestones in Nigerian democracy. The 2007 elections, the controversies and the challenges. Here was presidency, the doctrine of necessity, where, for instance, the president is that travel out, if you are going to be away for 21 days, the constitution says you need to submit leave a letter behind the National Assembly stating that your advice should take over and advise. But this is being practiced in the middle of the bridge. Aside from that, the Jonathan era, I also said, I also made a look at the way democracy was practiced under Goodluck Jonathan, and in particular the 2015 elections, this peaceful transfer of power. President Jonathan's name is going to be written, or is already written in gold, as far as what he's been concealing power, because this trajectory is what we expect not to see in the coming years once you lose an election. And also, provided it's under a free and fair election, you can just submit yourself to congratulate the win. Nigerians were miffed when we had that phone call. And you needed to know the teaching. It broke down the country. People were already packing. So people were calling their travel agents because they thought they would be crisis. A sitting president with all the powers at his disposal, the army, the police, the DSS, and what are they? They will just call let's Buhari and thank him and say, I congratulate you, sir. I consider you take over. So please, let's always give President Jonathan the pride of place. So I will end by looking at the challenges facing Nigerian democracy. Our electoral system is big overhaul. We would have loved to go electronic e-voting, e-accreditation, and the results transmitted live, and Nigerians will see transparently. But our fear, our phobia, is that that tool will be manipulated. But if we could just get out of any act or any lack of commission, omission, that will let our electoral system not to be seen with transparent. That is where our problem, will always be at the end of the day. The issue of separation of powers between the executive, the legislature, and the judicial branches of government is crucial for a functioning democracy. However, in Nigeria, there have been instances of executive overreach, legislative subservience, and challenges to judicial independence. It's quite unfortunate that there is that fear that if the executive sends anything to National Assembly, that will go. We don't say the situation where the Constitution states that for any particular act of the executive to be found to be legit, it needs at least 72% votes cast by Senate. That should be sacrosanct. That should be obeyed. Any voice vote that takes care of that is almost no longer working and should not allow it to stay in place. So my call is on the legislature to sit up and ensure that the checks and balances as required under the doctrine of separation of powers. One of the also major challenges, the corruption. It has become a norm in Nigeria that whenever people gather, their conversation will sooner or later end with the issue of corruption. The trouble with Nigeria has become the subject of our small class talks very much. Any places, just like in England, the way they talk about the English weather that changes anyhow in the meantime. So the problem with Nigeria is corruption. If only we can try and find a way of despite the ICPs, despite the EFCs, despite our criminal courts, penal code, whatever. Yet